Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here. Good morning, my panelists. I just want to quickly introduce myself to you and first allow my panelists to introduce themselves, and then I will give an overview about our session, and then I will take my seat. My name is Owiny. Once again, I represent the Center for Multilateral Affairs in other spaces. I also serve as an advisor for digitalization with GIZ Uganda. And it is an honor to be here. So let me just pass over my mic starting from this side, and then just introduce yourself.
Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, I see the energy now is well revived. Yeah, I'm Emmanuel Chagara from Milma Security, where we work with various institutions to strengthen their cybersecurity capacity. And it's an honor to be here. I thank the organizers, Lillian, and the team at Internet Society for convening this great session. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. Hello. My name is Dorothy Mukasa. I lead the team at the Unwanted Witness, where we work at the intersection of technology and human rights. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Arnold, Mangeni, Director for Information Security at NITA, Uganda. NITA is an agency under the Ministry of ICT, responsible for coordinating the growth and development of IT within the context of social and economic development.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rehema Baguma. I work at Makerere University School of Computing and IT. Currently, I'm an associate professor of information systems. I also do research in ICT for development as well as consultancy. Nice to be here.
Thank you. So today, our session is about advancing normative frameworks for responsible state behavior in the cyberspace. Is some bit of, an heavy kind of session that we propose, but we thought that it would be prudent to start this discussion, even at the local level, so that we continue advancing this discourse that, of course, it's not new at the global level. At the global level, there's already a lot of efforts that's being done, working basically to ensure that it's peaceful, it's safe and secure for everyone's use. So there's a group called the Group of Government of the UN General Assembly, basically to advance security of ICTs in the cyberspace. There are also other parallel sessions where we are an ended working group in the field of information and communication technology, which basically is also a platform that allows member states and many other stakeholders, including private sector, academia, stakeholder groups to discuss and deliberate on how ICTs can be used for purposes of maintaining international peace and stability. So it is from that kind of background that this discussion has been going on, at this level, and we are glad to be participating in these processes, both at the UN level, at regional level, and even now taking place in Addis Ababa at the Global Internet Governance Forum. We are going to be advancing this discussion. So about these issues, even at the national level, because the issues of cyberspace is an issue that affects everyone. The stability and security of the cyberspace is an issue that not only affects governments and multilateral agencies, but individuals like us. Today, we are confronted by issues of conflicts in the cyberspace perpetuated by malicious actors, bad actors, but also governments right as weapons of war, even during times of peace. And these are, issues and ramifications around, the protection and security of our critical network
security is a continuous journey and not a destination. So at a point in time, if you take temperature, an institution gets heat, and they will take the wrong impression that, okay, what measures exactly or is used to come to the conclusion that we are safe? There are quite a number of things that can be done. And not run away from the question, we've had a number of assessments done at a high level. One is one that they always assess our capabilities. But I believe the best thing to do would be to do an assessment at institution level, because that is the point at which you'll have the right sense of the security, because it's the institution that can do something about it. For example, recently we were hit by one of the providers of services, mobile money services, was hit with the fraud. Shortly after that, we had a ranking where they were assessing the price of internet within the East African community. And whereas Uganda was stated to be having a fairly highly priced internet, they were saying that our services are more secure. The services are so secure, more secure than those in the region that haven't suffered similar incidents. So I always want to focus on give the temperature according to that, but also by and large, temperature does not mean it's a prediction of what the future will be in terms of health. Interested in that notwithstanding, towards norms, there are 11 norms according to the UN, and we've done quite a bit around trying to be a responsible state in the way we promote the use of internet and related services. We've done around the enabling environment, we've done a lot of things around benchmarking, what legislations exist in other countries. And the objective, of course, is try and harmonize the laws, because whereas the norms require us to support each other during investigations, it will be difficult for you to support someone if the laws in their environment are different from those in yours. Crime has to be uniform. If in their country it is a crime and in ours it isn't a crime, then it becomes difficult for you to rely on our institutions here to be able to support. So we are trying to harmonize laws so that we can have crime uniformly defined within the various areas. Then, of course, we are doing a lot of international collaboration, and this one is seen through participation in international events like conferences. We have agencies foreign that we are working with, like a Global Forum for Cyber Expertise. We have FAST, which is the Forum for Instant Response and Security Team. There's Team Camrio, there's South Shadow Server Group. There are so many other stats that we work with to try and ensure that we are creating an ecosystem where we can help each other to be able to help us fight crime. Again, related to that, we have international conventions and treaties like the Budapest Convention, that is the Convention on Cybercrime from the Europe, which is they call it Budapest because it was agreed a convention, which is the African Union Convention on Cybercrime and Data Protection. So we are actually working towards acceding to those conventions so that we are bound by the provisions in those conventions in supporting each other during investigations of crime. And when we do that, it means, because we know crime is doesn't have respect for jurisdiction, someone can be in Kenya or Nigeria and perpetrate a crime on systems within Uganda. But if all countries have signed up to those conventions, then it's incumbent upon Nigeria to support the investigation till prosecution of those perpetrators of those crimes. And of course, it removes the tolerance of countries supporting people within their boundaries to perpetrate crime on other countries. We have quite a number of bilateral agreements and mutual legal assistance agreements that we've signed up to as a country, which enable us to support each other during such occurrences. Then, of course, we established the National SAT and Coordination Center as a body responsible for international relations and investigations and responding to incidents. And they're doing a very good job working with other SATs to promote capacity and capability within our environment. Then, of course, we have done extensive awareness to promote responsible use of internet and internet-related resources by the various citizens that we have within the country. And of course, we also did, as a way of trying to take status of our cyber capabilities, we did cyber maturity model assessment, and the results are available, which identifies the key areas that we have to improve as a country. And rightly said, Moses, capacity development or capacity building is one of the initiatives that we have to embark on in order to uplift our status as a country. Thank you.
So how would you describe the current state of, the security of the infrastructure where you work? If you are to say, just talk about SAT.
Okay, I thought I'd successfully eluded that. the state, according to the rankings that have been done by the global bodies, they place us in a very good standing.
Yeah.
But I still continue to call that a fallacy, because it does not give the real impression of every one of the institutions that are under your jurisdiction in terms of cybersecurity.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. I would have, of course, loved. I know that you have done a lot of work with SAT. I've, spoken. I've interviewed you a number of times, and I know that SAT, arguably, it could be doing good. There was a consultation that took place at, as a pre-event Malawi, and there were a number of cybersecurity, experts and professionals drawn from different government agencies around Africa. And one of the issues was that despite the fact that many, countries around, in Africa have established SATs, but this is also riddled with a lot of capacity gaps at national level. So cyber capacity gaps, either at the level of individuals, but also institutional. So what would you say about that?
Around Ministry of ICT established the National Information Security Advisory Group, which is, it puts together both private and public sector players within the cyberspace, and they meet quarterly to discuss issues of importance on cyber, the risks that the country faces, and what can be done to improve those. Now, that is a forum that has given us entry into so many institutions that are members, because, for example, if there is a need to work with one of the telcos to help with investigation of crime, then it's easier because the telcos are represented at NISAG level, and is that kind of understanding that we have established with each other at that level. So technically, it becomes possible for us to ride on the goodwill of some of these institutions when they send members to NISAG to be able to do the support that is expected from the country, from the international space.
Thank you. Thank you, Anna. Let me go to Dorothy. Dorothy, this comes despite the fact that government has invested a lot in acting cybersecurity laws and frameworks and policies, basically arguably intended to safeguard avert malicious use of ICTs in the cyberspace. But reports still show that the country grapples a lot with insecurities in the cyberspace. I think for a data that was produced in 2021, they reported that Uganda still loses about $3 million to insecurities associated with cybersecurity. But also we have seen the tendency where the argument has been that does the laws and policies enacted because I think securing individuals is a better option. So, more than even securing the technology itself, because security starts with the individuals. So in your view, where do you think the problem is?
Thank you so much, Moses. I want to agree with you that securing individuals would be the most important aspect when it's about cyberspace. People may think it's cyberspace, but we're talking about people, because our lives are now depending on the cyberspace. And what do we deposit in the cyberspace? We deposit ourselves in this cyberspace through the data, all the information that is being collected on these infrastructures, information that is being collected. It's all about us. And so for me, I think it's important to link privacy protection, with cyber security. So there's a direct interconnection between privacy protection and privacy protection. I'm talking about our lives as individuals, users of this technology. We need to think about protecting our privacy, in the cyber space. And therefore, when we're making these laws, we know that there are several laws, that are being made, but also made as put in terms of protecting and securing the infrastructure. But where does it leave the people? Why do we still have attacks happening? Why do you still have a lot of mistrust among the users of this infrastructure? Why are we having institutions being hacked, and data taken away? We know that we can never, totally stop hacking, because it's a professional game. But we can at least minimize, okay? We can minimize by putting in place laws. We have so many laws, but some of them really even further expose us as users of this technology to insecurity. For instance, Uganda has the Regulation of Interception of Communications Act, This is the law that is supposed to secure us, but then it gives a lot of powers to telecom companies to really tap into our communication, and also we are supposed to register our SIM cards, giving a lot of data, a lot of information that, that speaks to who we are, okay? But how is that data protected at the end of the day? Do we have a law that really pins data collectors, for instance, telecom collectors, telecom service providers from sharing this data, even when they're supposed to use for anybody that's supposed to access this information has to get a court order. But we've seen instances where court orders have not been availed, but data has been given out, even when you have data protection law that's supposed to safeguard us, it has an exception clause where data is supposed to freely be given out for reasons of security, for security purposes. All these are loopholes that are really putting individuals and citizens into the red line, for abuse of their personal data. But also, I think it should be mandatory, government should make it mandatory for data collectors and service providers, for example, telcos, to be able to do assessments periodically, assessment for security of personal data should be a continuous process, you can't assess today in 2022, and at the end of the year, you think you're very secure. You'll be surprised. It should be continuous to ensure that there are safeguards. I would like to point to our recent report as Unwanted Witness, the latest report on privacy scores, telecom companies and financial institutions, both in Uganda and Kenya. You'll be surprised that both all these institutions scored 0 when it comes to accountability. What does that mean? That people do not know, they are not accountable to the data subject. And this is a starting point. It's a very important trait when it comes to securing individual data, but also empowering citizens with the information that relates to how the data is being used, and empowering data collectors as well with the trust. Because technology is all about trust. If I don't trust your service, I will not use it, But because we are in a situation where, you must use a telecom service, you need to communicate, and so you're forced to use that service. But there's a lot of mistrust if you speak to the users when it comes to how secure their information is, okay? At the regional level, we have the Malabo Convention, which Arnold has alluded to. But trust me, 8 years down the road, we've not even attained 15 ratification. Countries that have not signed. So far, we have 14. 8 years down the road. What does this speak to our governments in the region? Are they up to, committed to protecting the people? are they committed to protecting the users in the digital space? With this slow pace of ratification of this convention, which is really very important in terms of protecting, upholding cyber security and protecting personal data in the region, okay? If you cannot ratify a law that your member states, really passed, how then are you able to secure? So it's very important that, we have human rights centric approach to these policies, ensure that, we do check and revise these policies because technology evolves each and every other day. Today you may think your system is very secure, but you'll be surprised that you're going to be hacked. Okay. But also, I think data collectors and government should be, should really engage in dialogue with different key stakeholders like civil society, use the different research that is being produced by civil society to ensure that they do check on their vulnerabilities and be able to, to upgrade and also strengthen, because it helps both ends. If people are secure, government is very secure, and so there is need to really involve the citizens, civil society in all these processes and ensure that we all are the same level of security when it comes to the use of technology. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dorothy. Thank you also for highlighting actually the importance of a human-centric approach to cybersecurity policymaking. I'll come back to you, and I think Arnold certainly will have to respond to some of the issues you have raised, either in regard to the Malabo Convention or, the focus on securing people as opposed to largely, the infrastructure. But let me move to Emmanuel. Emmanuel, I used to think, and you come from the private sector, I used to think that the private sector was more resilient in terms of, securing their network infrastructures. But when I spoke to the National Security Advisory Group that Arnold referred to, an initiative that, government created through NITA-U, they told me that actually the situation could as well be worse in private sector because sometimes private sector don't even disclose the extent of the damage or the, the problem that they go through due to reputational loss. When I spoke to guys at the MTN, they assured me about the resilience and strength of their network infrastructure, that it was too strong and it was really hard for any possible breach and stuff like that. So really from your point of view, how would you describe to us, the state of affairs within the private sector from, the way you know it, as far as, critical network?
Thank you, Moses. So cybercrime is an emerging problem. And so sectors over, both from government and private, are still trying to get their footing when it comes to dealing with the threat. Recently, the World Economic Forum ranked cyber threats now among the top 3 biggest threats that every business has to deal with. It's no doubt that for many businesses, the struggle to reconcile between investing in business versus investing in security is still a very big challenge. Why? Because security per se is not deemed as an economic, it does not attract sales, all right? But if I have to spend $500,000 on strengthening my infrastructure, primarily it will not look like an investment. But then in the long run, we have all seen that it is a far more meaningful investment than actually sending your salespeople out. So when it comes to the question of the private, still a very big gap that many institutions, I should also say that sectors such as the financial sector, the telcos, are doing quite a lot in terms of investing in cybersecurity, in terms of security trainings, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of making sure policies are in place. But you see, as the past speakers have mentioned, cybercrime is a borderless crime. That's number one. Number two, it is evolving at a very fast rate. So you find that while you're still dealing with a threat that you have learned about, maybe it happened to your neighbor, there is a new one that is going to happen to you and none of you have ever experienced it. So the speed at which cyber threats are evolving is quite extensive. Many institutions are grappling with the ability to respond to it. And that does not change the fact that there is actually quite efforts that are going down into making sure that these systems are secure. So, for example, when we come back to the question of capability, are there people who are hiding the stories, as you have mentioned? Yes, it's true. There is a big question around, do I disclose this information and I am compliant with the Data Privacy Act, which actually requires that you disclose, or do I deal with it quietly and then maybe hopefully no one knows? Some people are still dealing with it quietly. The law will definitely come for you. And therefore, on such forums, we also encourage you that whenever you experience a cyber incident, you must be cognizant of the law, which requires that you disclose it, especially when it involves personal data of users, especially the general public. So many people, many businesses are scared of the implication, especially when it comes to loss of credibility. We have seen, there was a time we were conducting a training and I randomly asked participants in the room, which bank do you think is the most susceptible to cyber attacks? I could say more than 70% of them mentioned one bank. Of course, I will not mention the name of the bank. But I thought to myself, well, I wasn't even intending to mention that bank. But the fact that 70% of the people in the room mentioned one bank, it meant that that bank is already in crisis. And definitely they are in for a lot of trouble, because if the general public knows you as a weak bank that is susceptible to attacks day in, day out, then definitely that's a problem that you have to deal with. Now, there is no business that wants to find themselves in that place. Because we don't want to find ourselves in that place, the best thing to do is to deal with the problem, sweep it under the carpet, moving on. But then the law is definitely against that. So there is that that conflict between disclosing the reality of what's going on inside the financial institutions, the various companies, and it's not just banks, health sectors, transport facilities, insurance companies, cuts across. Okay. Then of course there is also the reality of disclosing the things so that you're compliant with the law. Now, many institutions are not cognizant of the fact that when we're building strong cybersecurity controls, we have to look at a 360 approach. For many of the institutions we have had the privilege of working with, you find that, yes, they had built the right security controls. They had all these procedures in place. They had the ransomware that was brought in through some guy who was trying to look for a green card. Recently, we were working with a health institution that was extensively attacked. All of their infrastructure across the country were pulled down by a ransomware attack. But I can assure you that the ransomware was brought in by someone who had received a phishing email and went ahead and clicked it. It was a very suspicious email. That is the most stupid. You see, there are things that we would say, oh, we can give you a benefit of doubt because the email looks very, very clean and you could easily fall for it. This email, you could not fall for it, but somehow they falls for it. And the next thing we know, the entire institution is pulled down. So when we're talking about frameworks on such forums, it's also important for us to understand what are some of these frameworks that the private sector can rely on. Of course, we have the National Information Security Framework built by NITA. We should all be familiar with these frameworks and use it within your institution to assess your security health, to assess your maturity when it comes to dealing with cybercrime. We always talk about the people element, the process element, and technologies. Under process, we're talking about things like policies. Many of our institutions, even the well-established, that look like they know what they're doing, do not have policies in place. Incident response policies are not in place. We have seen I think many of you may be familiar with the fact that all cyber attacks are happening over weekends. Has any of you noticed that? Or you may not have noticed that trend. But you will hear when we get back, Monday morning is always where the news is broken to us from. Such and such has lost 10 billion. Why is it always a Monday morning? How come institutions are not learning that you must maintain the same vigilance through the week, the same way you must maintain it over the weekend, the same way you do it from Monday to Friday? Why is it that we're having people going home to sleep for 2 days when the infrastructure is not being monitored? These are some of the small problems that we as the private sector must be cognizant too. Whenever we talk about frameworks in regard to cybersecurity, we must look at capabilities of identification, protection, detection, response, and recovery. Many of us do not have the capabilities of detection. We don't have capabilities around recovery or even the response. We are only very much focusing on protection. But you see, we always say that cybercrime, cyber attacks is a matter of when. It is not a matter of if. So if we know that it's a matter of when, then you as an institution must immediately build capabilities around recovery, okay, around response. If an incident was started on Friday and up to Monday morning, money is still being siphoned out of your core banking system, then definitely you have a big problem to deal with. Yet, unfortunately, for many of our mature institutions, as we label them, they still deal with the same challenges. There is no recovery process. There are no effective response process. We worked with another institution that had an incident that went on for over 4 days. Money was being cashed out through the wallets. For 4 days, why would you not have capabilities to respond in 4 days to a fraud that is going down in your wallet? So I want to conclude my discussion by talking around areas of recovery and response. This is a very big gap when it comes to the private sector. Many of us have not focused on it because we still work with the mindset of, I want to make sure I build a system that cannot be hacked. And in the security space, we say there is no such thing as absolute security. There is no such thing as my system cannot be hacked. So we must face the reality and start answering questions around response and recovery. Recovery, you can even talk around things of cyber insurance. Somehow, I don't even see cyber insurance in this country. So countries such as Kenya have really matured in terms of cyber insurance. Here we have maybe 2 or 3 service providers, and it's a very complicated premium to even discuss with them. Why? Because there is still no clear appreciation of cybersecurity, no clear appreciation of the magnitude of the threats that the country deals with. So within the private sector, we have to start thinking around areas of recovery and response, which is a far more sincere approach. Let me use the word sincere. It is more practical. It's more, you must be sincere with yourself and know that that attack will one day come. And when it reaches, you have a plan on how to respond to it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Emmanuel, for that very detailed submission. Anna, I think before we tilt this discussion to another angle, I would like to give you the floor to maybe respond to issues of cybercrime. Anna, issues of cybercrime like Emmanuel talked about, or whatever submission that Dorothy made that you might want to.
Thank you very much. One of the key issues that was mentioned by Dorothy was the one of slow pace in rectifying some of these international treaties and conventions. The thing is this, when having those discussions, they never involve all stakeholders. For example, the Budapest Convention and Malabo as well. What happens that now the African Union, to be specific now on the one for Malabo, they looked at this as something very good to promote investigations of crime as well as data protection. And then they established a working group that did a lot of consultation on other continents, how they are handling the issue, came up with Malabo Convention. But now, the responsibility of acceding or ratifying treaties is the responsibilities of the Foreign Affairs as a ministry. Now, the document is thrown to them and they have no understanding of what implications it has when it comes to foreign relations, amongst others. So they are slow because they were not involved or they didn't have trusted technical people from their side to look at the formation of these conventions from the onset until it's finalized, to give them assurance that actually everything is as it should. That one we discovered when we had conversations with the Council of Europe on Budapest ratification, because of course we wanted training. They had training for judicial and prosecution officers around how to handle affairs of investigating and prosecuting crime. And the debate was, before we extend this training, you must accede to the Budapest Convention. So we went through the conversations, discussed. There were some clauses within the convention that we're not comfortable with. But then time comes and we're like, okay, we are done, we are ready. But none of us actually had the power to accede or ratify. Even the Ministry of ICT, which was championing our cause at that time. So that's when we realized that actually it's a Ministry of Foreign Affairs, because this is a foreign affairs matter. So now bringing the Ministry of Foreign Affairs up to speed also took a bit of time, and which we've done, and that's how we have now the clearance to accede to the convention. So I believe other jurisdictions are suffering from that, which is a big issue. If you do not involve all stakeholders from the onset, then some things are going to be sluggish or slow. Emmanuel, yes, cyber insurance hasn't kicked off well as it should for a number of reasons. One, because, in the insurance world, premium is set based on the value of what you're trying to protect. Now, when compromises or incidents generally happen, one of the key things is, what are you going to suffer as an organization? And some of them are faced with, amongst others, reputation damage. Now, quantifying the loss that you'll face when your reputation is affected becomes difficult, because we do not have sufficient expertise to be able to do quantitative risk assessments. Majority of the guys that do risk assessments are doing qualitative of high, medium, low. So it becomes difficult to put value. Well, the impact will be high when reputation is suffers, but what value can you attach to that high? It's a subject of discussions. And of course, majority of players within the space are business environments that focus more on what they benefit from the insurance. So if it's not very clear that I'm sinking in this much money for insurance, and this is how much I will benefit in the event that I was to suffer a loss, then they are hesitant, because they would look at it as an expenditure as opposed to an investment. And those are some of the concerns that we have, trying to talk to these very many stakeholders to change their mindset. And I actually always see people talk about policies. Policies don't really stop crime. Policies don't do much if the mindsets are still stuck in the wrong places. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Prof, let me come to you now. People in the room could be asking, what is norms and why the norm discussion at this point in time, considering the fact that, of course, there are so many pressing issues in the cybersecurity space that we need to deal with, but also nationally. Of course, our view is that norms is an essential mechanism for advancing, cooperation in the cyberspace. And so could you talk about norms and why it is important, and why normative frameworks should be able to speak to our realities as African countries, and not just copy any norm that is proposed by the UN? The 11 norms have been talked about, but do they speak to our realities as African countries, considering, the realities that we face? So, of course, yes.
Okay, thank you, Moses. Norms, what are norms? Norms, it's just about standard ways of behavior. What do we expect? How are people expected to behave, to conduct themselves, to treat other people, their neighbors, their collaborators, and etc. So they are not laws, but they are very important. And of course, we we live together in harmony as human beings, even in Uganda, even here right now. We are together in harmony, able to listen to each other because of those unspoken norms we know we must follow and practice as human beings. So for the normative principles for cybersecurity, it's about, we know the norms for wrong and right, and this also extend to cyberspace. They are not limited to the physical world. They also extend to the physical space. Do not steal, extend to the physical space. Do not harm, do not abuse, do not manipulate your neighbor, do not manipulate any person you find online. It is so they extend to the cyberspace, and if we were all to follow them, we would all live together in harmony. We wouldn't even have the hackers, wouldn't have the people stealing, wouldn't have the phishing emails Emmanuel was talking about, that a certain institution staff opened, and then all of a sudden the entire infrastructure across the country was down. It's because we have moved away from those standard norms of behavior, expected ways of behavior, that we are having all these problems. Examples of norms are like the 10 Commandments. Most, all the Christians are familiar with the 10 Commandments in the Bible. It's not a law, but very many people follow them. And because of that, there is some kind of harmony and good behavior we see in the world just because of those 10 Commandments. Have I answered everything?
So in regard to cyberspace, I think you have done a very good overview, conceptualizing it, giving us that broad understanding. So why do you think it's important for us to have these norms in the cyberspace? Of course, you have entered into it, but you can also be more deliberate in arguing a case for why norms are essential for the security of the cyberspace.
Okay, thank you once again, Moses. Arnold just said you can have the best policies, and I will add you can have the best security in the world. But as long as the mindset is still upside down, is not the way it's supposed to be, is not thinking right, is not positive, is negative, is selfish, is greedy, and all those bad things that make us deviate the standard norms of behavior, you won't go anywhere with security. Because like all the speakers have said, security is a moving target. You're going to come up with the best technology today, but somebody else is busy coming up with a whole new attack that you had not thought about in this solution. So if these people have this wrong mindset, then we'll continuously have problems, and the problems are going to continue becoming bigger and bigger. Despite not that the technology is not evolving at the same rate, not that we do not have policies in place. So if we can have norms working, I think it is the best protection we can have for cybersecurity. So if all of us can put our heads together to find the best way we can make norms work, we won't even be spending as much money on these technologies as we are spending now.
Thank you. I will get back to you on norms, but I will pass over to Dorothy. Normative frameworks for state behavior. I don't know if from your experiences, you have seen, I know there are processes that can lead us to norms, and this could be things to do with institutional dialogue, regular dialogue, confidence building measures, between and among states. From your experience of, work at your organization, have you seen any bilateral, multilateral process that could potentially lead to norm development, or anything that is, related to norm that could bolster multilateral, bilateral cooperation between and among states? Of course, coming from the backdrop that already conflicts are being perpetuated in the cyberspace, and we have seen how nation states are having tensions within, by each other or multilaterally. Yes.
Thank you, Moses. I want to think that, yes, it's good to talk about norms, the norms, how people should behave. But I think technology comes with power. And everybody, it's human nature that everybody wants to assume power, right? And so the more sophisticated the technology, the more the threat, okay? Because there's somebody out there who wants to, to break into this sophistication, to prove that they're even more powerful, right? And so I'm really hesitant to see norms really, really being so ruling the technology evolution or the cyberspace as it is now, because believe me or not, it's power. Technology is power. That's why you see, superpowers. Everybody now is running to acquire that powerful technology or build that powerful technology that they can have, to be able to be powerful and control other, right? This is very true, and it's a reality in today's world. And so, and I also believe, I agree with Arnold that, and Michael panelists that, policies are not an end to societal change, but it's a very important contributing factor when it comes to regulating how people should behave. And it should also apply in the digital space. Just imagine the Bible was written without the 10 Commandments, right? It would be a different story, perhaps. So these policies are very important to regulate how society behaves, and in the digital space, it's even more important because it's more harmful than the physical space. And therefore, we need these policies to be able to guide, okay? I know at the African level, the AU just passed the African Union data protection framework, which is speaking to the harmonization of data protection in the region. I think they're driving to having the similarity of the GDPR, but again, the slowless nature of the African continent in terms of adapting to frameworks and policies that, that guide how safeguard the citizens is catching up with this framework. Because today, not all African countries have domesticated data protection laws, even when they have, they recognize privacy as a right in all their constitutions. We do not have fully 100% data protection laws. I think we are 33 now as a continent, which is very problematic. So when you speak about harmonization, it's a long journey for Africa. We see how the Western really rushes to harmonize. We are all now being governed by the GDPR, even when we are not part of the Europe as a continent, but we are managed by the GDPR. Okay, how about Africa having its own law, that crosses all borders, because we all know technology is borderless. When are we going to rule as a continent to be able to lead? So I think it's I know African Union is doing tremendous work when it comes to security and data protection. But I also know that the countries so far, the African countries that have adopted data protection laws in their jurisdictions have formed a network of data protection authority in Africa. That means that caters for only those countries that have domesticated data protection laws. Okay, so it's a journey that Africa needs to walk, but also I think it also begins in country. As a society, we need to bridge the gap between those that are making these policies and the people that are affected by these policies, the citizens. We need to create that dialogue. That at the end of the day, if policies are made to safeguard our our lives online, they should be focusing on our lives, not assuming that policies are made for us and yet they're made to, to really make us as a target on the digital space.
Thank you. I think we need to come back to the audience for questions and answers. So prepare your question and answers. I'm so sorry. Prepare your questions and comments or perspectives or views, which you want to pass over to our panelists. But let me get back to Arnold, and then we get back to the audience. Arnold, in about maybe 5 minutes or less, without actually also delving into the politics, one of the issues in the session description was that conflicts in the cyber among nation states, and there was an example of a diplomatic rift between Uganda and Rwanda that escalated due to issues to do with cyber espionage that was perpetuated in the cyberspace via the telecommunications network of MTN. I don't want you to, because I know you may not be comfortable delving into the politics of that, but within the context of that, issue, it calls for the need for building confidence, between nation states. If I'm confident to work with you, and I know that your work with SAT, among many other issues, some of the issues that have contributed to, confidence building measures. Like I said, also regular talking, institutional dialogue, between states, state A, state B, could also be crucial, really, in building that confidence and leading us to that journey that Dorothy is talking about that could potentially lead to norm development. Now, from your experience, from your point of view, working at NITA-U, do you see, or are there some examples where processes that has, led to cooperation between and among nation states? Could you just tell us about some of those processes or initiatives directly where you have held, conversations leading to cooperative measures, between and among nation states that, could potentially, contribute to leading to norm development in the long run, because in the long run, the issue is norm development, but in the short run, regular institutional dialogue, cooperation, institutional benchmarking that you talk about and things like that. So, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. The third norm from the UN norms, the responsible state behavior norms, states that countries shall not knowingly or unknowingly allow their territories or institutions from their territories to be used to breach systems in other countries. So for the region, like Dr. Baguma is saying, if we have countries sticking to the norms and playing by the requirements or expectations from those norms, then such cases wouldn't happen. At the regional level, we used to have what initially started as the East African Community, but again, it broke off when some countries did not participate actively to what was termed as the Northern Corridor Initiative. Now, the Northern Corridor Infrastructure Program had principles of collaboration on cyber, and of course, it was promoting responsible state behavior in the relationship between the countries. So yes, we've had cases where we've had to sit on table and agree on how to utilize our infrastructure, because it's connected in many ways than we can imagine.
All right. So I bring the floor back to you, our audience. Any question, comment? We have one hand there, second hand, third, fourth, fifth. All right. We start with those. You can tell us your name. They know themselves. Who was the first?
If you can raise, okay. Thank you, Moses. My name is Edwin Alecho. I am a technology entrepreneur in the cybersecurity space. My question is for Emmanuel and Arnold around harmony of laws. Recently, the DOJ revised its Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, which in our country are equivalent to the Computer Misuse Act, to include good faith security research. What that means is that it will not prosecute ethical hackers. My question is there a sandbox where the private sector can report their findings without fear of prosecution? Because some of us in this private sector are aware of these vulnerabilities, but because of the laws, we have to first ask people for their permissions before we access their systems. So is there a sandbox where we can come and tell you about our findings without fear of prosecution? Thank you.
That was the second hand. Yeah, just here. Here.
Okay.
Thank you so much to the panelists. My name is Tara Godfrey, and with data protection and privacy activist. Well, my question goes first to Professor Rehema. We've talked about norms, we've talked about ethical issues, but are these included in the curriculum when we teach when you're teaching these ICT professionals? I feel like from the research that we've done, I feel like so many institutions of higher learning do not incorporate the issues that are happening in a day-to-day life. Like, for example, issues like the executive director, Madam Dorothy Mukasa, has said, issues like data protection and privacy. When you interact with a software engineer with the first class whatsoever, and you start talking about issues of data protection, they will tell you, but wait, this company should be like this and this. They look at more of enhancing the company's needs than looking at these ethical issues that we're talking about here. So how is the curriculum? I wouldn't expect a software engineer to go again, take a short course in data protection and privacy and so many other issues. Then another question goes to Mr. Arnold. Like a colleague has talked about non-disclosure. Mr. Emmanuel has talked about non-disclosure. I feel like the emphasis is being given to private institutions, but yet when it comes to breaches, even government institutions have suffered, So how can you, or how do you enforce that to make sure that even this government institution, it's able to disclose when there is a breach? Because we've seen that so many incidents happening, and you're like, okay, am I going to go to NITA? Yet in some instances, NITA is the one in charge of that particular website, or so on and so forth. So how do you make sure that you enforce this so that we don't only focus on private institutions, but as well as government institutions? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Godfrey. That was the third.
Yes, Moses, we have people that are attending online, and I remind you, if you have comments or questions, you can message them and we'll be able to read them, or you'll be able to speak to us because we'll connect.
The hand was here, I think the third one.
Okay, we finally have a lady.
You can go like the other side.
Thank you so much. My name is Carol Mukisa Nyanguma from Women's Foundation. My question is going to Rehema and Arnold because they aired out the same issue regarding mindset change. This has been a common talk, especially when the budget was read. And you are insisting that policies don't do much as long as the minds are stuck. What do we do to get the minds moved? Should we go back to raising our families properly? Where is the problem? Because we don't have to be reformists. We need to approach the problem from the very root. So the issue is, what do you suggest that is the best thing to put these minds moving or in a proper way? Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Behind you, the two other hands.
Thank you. Ziwa Jerome, and I basically have two questions. The first one can go to any panelist. Then the second one is specifically for Mr. Chagara. Now, my first question is, recently there is a large trend in the use of VPNs, for example, to access Facebook. And my question is that, how does it influence the cybersecurity, most especially on a personal level? Now, the second one is about Wi-Fi networks. Last week, I saw how it is very easy to access all these hacking tools, for example, Aircrack, NG, and the rest. So how would you best advise like someone to safeguard their Wi-Fi networks? Thank you.
Thank you, Jerome.
Hello,
Hi.
I am Chagara Alan, and then my question is general. So when you're talking about cybersecurity, almost everything is going to be around the hackers and however they use the vulnerabilities. Me and my little research around cybersecurity, I think nobody goes to school to learn how to hack. They all learn how to protect. And however they use the vulnerabilities, that's what makes them who they are. The grey caps, the black cap hackers and stuff. So about the framework, I think it's the developers who are going to be able to use it. So I was asking, is it open source? Can people be able to contribute to the framework so that they don't get too skeptical to use the framework? We've had scenarios around, I think it was Zoom saying that it was end-to-end encrypted, and then it wasn't. So how are you going to make that framework open to people? Like, how are they going to get the confidence of using it, knowing that it's going to help them to protect the data?
Thank you, Alan. So, Alan, which framework are you talking about again? It's asking. Eh?
The framework that you say that's going to be used, that you're using.
Okay. All right. Let's pass. There was one other hand behind there. Okay, there's a lady there.
Okay.
Very long hand there.
Yeah. Internet has made it possible for people to attend online, and Sarah Ahura has a question. What is the impact of digital trust on e-security? What are the problems in IT governance in the public sector today? Gilbert Ochen, who is a senior lecturer of cybersecurity and digital forensics at Busitama University, has this comment. I would like to agree with Dorothy. Africa needs to develop its own laws and usage. Africa has unique challenges and are at different level of technological advancement, unlike the Europe and America. Relying or adapting what is developed for Europe or America will only further the challenges. Africa has different values unlike the West. For example, most frameworks are developed with benchmarks from the NIST or ISO standards with very little or no consultations, stakeholders. I'll take the microphone to the lady, but if you are online, feel free to send us a message, or if you would like to speak, we can connect to you. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Second Abadarin, a student at Eastbert University, doing cybersecurity and networking. Mine might be a complement, or I'm supplementing, like, as the cyber world or the cyberspace. what we should emphasize more about is the cyber awareness. People need to know. People need to know the implications, the impacts, like when you're out there, when you're on the internet, what are the outcomes? What are you going to face? What are you going to meet? People are out there, like getting involved in the digital world. You need to know, you need to have the knowledge of what you're going to meet, the circumstances. So as we all do everything, like we are giving resolutions or we are giving advice, everything should be concerned about the cyber awareness. People should know the impact, what you'll meet as like when you go to the digital world, everything is going digitally. Business are carried out, like everything is e-commerce. But people out there, they don't have that knowledge of what cyber means. Cyber crimes happen when there is an opportunity. Cyber crimes won't happen if people are aware of what to do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dorothy.
Yeah, thank you.
So let's have one last hand that was at the back there. That table at the hand.
Can
Can
he or
someone-
she raise? Then I can see them.
Okay, I don't know. Maybe they are no longer interested in asking. Okay, we'll get back to our panelists. Prof, maybe we start.
Okay, thank you, members, for your questions. I will respond to a few and pass on the other panelists. I'll respond to the curriculum issue, then mindset change. What should we do? Then I think Alan had a question on how do people become hackers? Has anyone ever produced a hacker? Is there a family or a tribe or country that produces hackers? Did you want to clarify? That's your question. That's not what you asked. Yes. Okay. The same question. People are taught how to protect. But then eventually we get some hacking. Because not the ethical way, but the unethical way. So how do they come to that? Then IT governance challenges. Okay, quickly, the curriculum, yes, somehow, but it's work in progress. It's not adequate. And of course, some do not have at all. So we still have those gaps. Let's keep talking about this. Let's keep, a curricula is reviewed according to the National Council of Higher Education guidelines every 3 years. So we have an opportunity every 3 years to review. And the challenge is before the 3 years have passed, normally you cannot change the curricula. So it's work in progress. I've taken the feedback. I'll give it back to my colleagues at the university and we ensure that we incorporate these aspects. Mindset change, how can we achieve it? Some of the things we do them because we don't know. Although we know many and we still do the wrong things, but there are others that happen because we do not know, especially in the tech space. There's a lot we do not know the implications. And that's why we have been having a challenge of the challenges of the youth and social media and technology because they do not know. These young people think everyone online is good. I keep telling my kids, I tell them, these are strangers. You have no idea who they are. You have no idea about their intentions. So do not believe them. Do not respond to strangers. Do not get excited about things you see online. You do not know the people behind them. So people do not know. So people need a lot of sensitization and awareness. Of course, curriculum, we need to teach about these things in our curricula, and they should be cross-cutting, not only for computing and technology courses, but cross-cutting across all disciplines. Then policy, of course, we need policy to know there are sanctions. When you do not do what you're supposed to do,
there are sanctions. This will complement the norm, the expected of behavior. So people know, yes, I know I'm not supposed to do this, but what's the implication if I do it anyway? If they know there's a bad implication, most of them want to do it. Then, of course, we need to strengthen our moral foundation. As a country, our morals have been, and maybe the world, not even a country, but especially Africa, our morals have been eroded by the influence of the foreign culture too much. The things you wouldn't do even when no one is seeing. But trust me, today's generation, many of them, they don't care. They will just go ahead and do it. Then how do people become hackers? They are not taught to hack or to steal through technology, to harm, etc., but they do it. It's just, again, weak morals. If you can steal, if you can steal physically, why can't you steal electronically? It's even easier. Tell me, if you can steal some other person's thing physically, why can't you steal electronically? It's much, much easier. If you can get IT governance challenges today, I'll just mention a few, the other panelists will mention others.
And that's where we can now advance to talk about frameworks and things at state level, but it always starts with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof.
Yeah, I think I forgot to talk about the way forward from my perspective, but many things have already mentioned. We have integration of the norms into local laws to aid in compliance. Then curricula, they must be part of our curricula. Then regional laws have been talked about. Intentional awareness and sensitization, even Emmanuel just talked about it. And then endorsement by nations, endorsement of these norms by nations. Already the G7, the group of 7, group of 20, and the Southeast Asian nations have already endorsed the 11 norms. So Africa, what are we waiting for? Thank you.
Thank you, panelists. This is a wrap. My audience, thank you so much for your active participation. Can we give a round of applause to my panelists and to ourselves?
With the Center for Multilateral Affairs. Let's give him a round. Thank you, Emmanuel, Chagara, Dorothy, Mukasa, Arnold, Mangeni, and Professor Rehema. Baguma. Let's give them a round of advancing normative frameworks for response. I hope we all have a lesson to take home.